Rise and shout. The bet is out. Welcome to another episode, another game preview. Say hi to my cat, jumping in right when I start. But we got Cincinnati coming to Provo, taking on the BYU Cougars. You can see the stuff down here, kind of lining over, and we'll get into that a little later. Just to preview a little bit, BYU coming off a loss to Kansas, at Kansas. And then, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Oh, you were just doing your ear. And then, no, Cincinnati coming off a loss to Oklahoma. Tanner, what do you think about this matchup? What's your first initial thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so I'm excited for this one. Coming off the loss to Kansas, felt like there's stuff we can improve on, but as I sat with the game more, it feels more like there is some stuff that's fixable. The run game we'll talk about, I don't think you can fix that. It hasn't been fixed in 4 games. I don't know if you can fix it all at once, but I think this one's going to be another chance for Slovis to really have a game like he did in the last one. He kept us in the Kansas game as long as he did, and so to have this one in Provo, and listening to an interview with Slovis today in his media availability, just saying he's excited to play under the lights. So many fans have been telling him, we're excited to see you Friday, and so to see him kind of playing off that energy, it'll be awesome if he can go out there and just have a great game, and we can see a win from BYU in this one.
Yeah, and speaking of Slovis, I'm glad you brought it up because it's going to send me on a tiny rant right now. I get on Facebook, and I know Facebook's kind of like where all the crazy fans are, but I get on Facebook after the game, and I see all these people tearing Slovis a new one, and I just don't get it. Because he's been the only thing that's kind of kept this team afloat. The only reason they were really in that game against Kansas was Slovis, and he's been everything we could have asked him to be. I mean, he's turned over the ball, I think it's 3 interceptions, 2 in the game against Kansas, but I feel like I can live with those. And he's just moving the ball so effectively. He's finding different receivers, Chase Roberts, Marion, Lassiter. We haven't seen much of Epps yet, but he's getting the ball around, and I just feel like he's the only reason they're in those games. And people were just ripping him apart, calling him slow v us or something. And
jeez,
I don't get the hate. He's got over 1,000 yards passing, 8 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 8 passing touchdowns. He has 3 or 4 more on the ground. And do you get the hate?
Yeah, so in the very first game against Sam Houston, like I had talked to you about, I was expecting to see him come out, and everyone had talked about Slovis, and didn't get it in that Sam Houston game, right? No real deep balls. Everything was just kind of, but each game it seems like he gets more confident and starts to, it feels like he's starting to play more of the scheme we saw with Jaron, right? We saw the deep ball to Marion, the deep ball to Roberts that we didn't see kind of earlier in the games against Sam Houston. And so it feels like he's gaining confidence. And yeah, he's the way he was moving the ball. If you want a new quarterback, let's say we've got Fennec in, and then a junior college transfer, but I still just think it's Slovis right now to just continue to ride with him. Yeah, he may be a little more turnover prone than we've seen in the past, but he also, with no run game, I feel like he's the guy we have to rely on now, and I'm going to ride with him. I'm going to keep saying, you know what, until because even the interceptions, they weren't on the same page, and the one to Rex was a little behind, but they're not like we've seen.
The only bad one was really, I mean, we don't know the miscommunication between him and Roberts, whose fault it was. I mean, they figured out in the film room. We're not there. And then the first interception he threw against SUU was kind of just like a pressure situation. He got hit as he threw it.
Yeah, he got hit as he threw it, let it go. So, I mean, we haven't seen him those interceptions where they'll throw it and it's to nobody.
Yeah.
There's no real receivers and you're just kind of like, what? But I think we're with him. He's the reason we stayed in the game. Let's give him some more games. I don't think there's any reason. It's BYU being BYU fans. Not all BYU fans, but the ones that tend to bring the, you know, like even looking at, I listened to a good podcast about people saying to get rid of the offensive line coach, and it was the Locked On podcast, and he was saying,
Yeah.
like, what's that going to do? It was Jeff Hansen saying, what
Yeah,
good is
I
that going
watched
to
that video
do?
too.
What good is that going to do to fire him mid-season? That's not a mid-season. That's an end of season. Let's try to get it figured out. Like, at least with the offensive line, this is what we have to deal with. So we got to just deal with it and see where we go. But it can be frustrating to not have answers for stuff. Even Kalani saying lots of times he doesn't have answers. This is a coaching thing, and that can be really frustrating. So,
I mean, yeah, going into the season, you keep hearing this is BYU's best offensive line. This is going to be the most dominant offensive line BYU's had in a long time. And usually an indication of a dominant offensive line is the running game.
Yeah.
Because that's really where they get to push that line forward, open up holes, kind of dominate the guys up front, and they just haven't done that. On the other hand, their pass protection has actually been pretty good. Besides the Sam Houston game, they've actually been pretty effective at protecting Slovis. So, sorry, there's these flies that keep landing on my face. Hopefully it's entertaining.
Well, another thing with Slovis, right?
Mm-hmm.
In his media availability today, he was taking some of the blame for the run game, saying things like, well, I could be better with my RPO, run pass option, and choosing when we run in. So I've only seen class from him as well, right?
Yeah. That's what you want to see.
The run game, I think we can really contribute to the offensive line, but to see him saying, like, he directly said this is not a one-person thing or even a one-unit thing. This is all 11 guys. It's it's a team thing, and so that's cool to see. Mm-hmm. I know that's what they kind of teach you to do, is to never talk bad, and you'd hate to see your quarterback out there being like, our offensive line sucks. What do you want to do? But and you see that more in the NFL, where it's more of a kind of individual.
They'll throw guys under the bus.
This is what we do. But in college, to see it, I like the guy. So
yeah. And speaking of the run game, because that's really going to be the thing that makes a difference in this game. I think it's been the same story every week, but this may be the game for BYU to get right running the ball. I mean, Cincinnati's allowing over 100 yards running per game, and that's against some, not bad opponents, but I think BYU is more talented than some of the teams they played. BYU currently averaging just over 60 rushing yards a game, and then Cincinnati allowing over 100. So if there's any game to get right, I think it's this one on the running game. Maybe a more balanced approach this time around. And I don't know. I just see BYU kind of being fired up. Hopefully they're fired up, and hopefully the offensive line, they see what people are saying, and they kind of just take note and get it done this week. This is a Friday game, so it'll be fun under the lights, like you said, with Slovis. Cincinnati coming in 2-2, just lost to Oklahoma last week, 20-6, and then they lost to Miami, Ohio the week before, which was kind of a surprise upset. They did beat Pitt, which is a pretty good win, but their defense looks pretty okay, but I was actually surprised with how much, especially against Oklahoma, that Oklahoma just kind of did what they wanted with them. Do you see BYU doing that? Do you see a more balanced approach against Cincinnati, or do you see kind of Slovis taking over again?
It's going to be interesting. So one thing I looked at when I pulled up Cincinnati's record, right, is that loss to Miami, Ohio. They were a 14.5 favorite going into that game. What went wrong in the game? And I pull up the box scores to try to get a little understanding, and I see that they outperformed them in yards. It was something like 150 yards that Cincinnati produced more than Miami, Ohio. So then I had to dive even deeper, and I found that it was because Cincinnati was not scoring touchdowns in the red zone. They were moving the ball. They would get in the red zone, and then they would kick a field goal. And so... And it wasn't even just in Miami, Ohio. It was against Oklahoma, right? They kicked 3 field goals and they missed 1. Yep. So in these last 2 games, their last 2 losses, they're not finding the end zone. There's something like 60-something% in the red zone. It just scored.
Yeah.
So that's not even, 66% of touchdowns. That's just 66% scoring. And against a BYU defense that's only giving up, I think it's 20 or what was it? I got it right here. It's a pretty impressive number. Um, it was like 77% of teams finding the red zone against BYU. So I'm thinking this will be where BYU's defense has a chance to shine. I know there's going to be some things that could go wrong with Emery, the quarterback for Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Possibly he's their second leading rusher, and we saw Jalen Daniels do what he wanted when he wanted, and their running back. So if they can find ways to step up on that, I'm thinking this could be a game where they can frustrate Cincinnati again in the red zone, like we saw in the past losses. And that being a way BYU can pull this out is through their defense and then having their offense score.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. BYU actually matches up pretty well against Cincinnati in that aspect. I was going to say in the red zone, Cincinnati just can't seem to get it done. They've made mistakes and penalties, some things that have kind of just halted their drives in the red zone. And I think BYU's defense has actually done pretty well in the red zone, stopping teams. They'll let teams get there, kind of a bend don't break, kind of like we've seen in past BYU teams, but it's been better than that. But just kind of holding them to field goals instead of letting their opponents score. So I can see a lot of field goals from Cincinnati in this game. Like you mentioned, Emory Jones, he's a really dynamic player. I was watching that Oklahoma-Cincinnati game, and he's just super good. He can run the ball. He can throw darts. But he is prone to making some mistakes. He has 5 interceptions on the season, and I think BYU can take advantage of that as well. Maybe causing a couple turnovers like they had against SUU and especially against Arkansas. Those key turnovers they had. I could see the same thing happening this week. And then they have another really good player, Xavier Henderson, the receiver. He transferred from Florida to Cincinnati because Florida had Anthony Robinson last year. He's a top 5 draft pick. These flies are nuts, dude. But yeah, Xavier Henderson's a really great receiver. He's pretty quick, so it's going to be whether or not BYU can kind of contain those guys, and especially Emory Jones running the ball, because we saw Jalen Daniels kind of make those first downs just by getting out of the pocket and running for him. So if they can do that and extend drives, then BYU might be in trouble. But I think is the red zone defense going to be the thing that really matters in this game.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we saw the run defense kind of evaporate in the second half with BYU. I'd love to see them look at the film. That was really one of the first kind of blemishes we saw come out of it. We've been talking so highly about the defense. And so I think this was kind of the first glimpse of what could be some of the cracks. So I hope this week as they prepare, I know it's a shorter week, game coming on Friday, they can use that time to figure out, okay, what did we do wrong in the run defense? Let's figure it out, because that's one of our weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
I think another big glaring thing in this game is both teams' third down percentage. One key highlight I had for this game was that this is going to be whoever wins this game is going to win the third down battle. And I know that's obvious, right? That's a pretty key thing, keeping your offense on the field. But both of these teams are dismal, and I think BYU's 20-something% and Cincinnati 30-something% in third downs, right? They're not converting. So this game's going to be who can stay on the field, who can get those points. And so and I'm leaning towards the Cougars with that, of getting it done. I think bouncing off the loss, although it is interesting, right? BYU coming off one loss, how motivated are you? But Cincinnati coming off 2 losses. 2 losses is really glaring. 3 in a row is something's not right. That can really hurt the fan base, hurt. I know the coach is pretty respected from coming, but that's 3 in a row is kind of a real scratch your head and we gotta get stuff done. So the motivation there could be enough to overcome whatever BYU trying to bounce back has had. So
yeah, honestly, BYU being at home makes me feel a lot better about this game, because if it was at Cincinnati, I think this spread wouldn't be what it is. I think those 2.5 points is probably because of BYU's home field advantage in this game.
Yeah.
I was going to bring something else up, I forgot, but what are your initial thoughts on the spread? Do you see BYU having enough to win this one?
Yeah, it's interesting. We like to look at a computer model to kind of get a feel for the. There's a
Yeah,
really
share
good
it.
one that
Give us the model. Tell us what the model says.
it actually had Cincinnati favored in this one by 3, but then you give the home field advantage to BYU 2, and it brings it down to 1. So I was surprised when I saw it actually at the 1.5 that it opened at, and it's continued to climb. Right, it's up to the 2.5.
Hmm.
I think I've even seen it up 3.5. Um, I personally see BYU in this one winning by 7 to 10 or even 14 is what I talked about. I just see it being a game where BYU comes to play under the lights. We saw against Arkansas them getting up, you know, showing the grit. I think it's a team that understands what the fans want from them and the opportunity they have to do something special.
Hmm.
People have joked that BYU doesn't show up in day games, which is what Kansas was, right? They notoriously day games seem to give them trouble, but what doesn't? Night games, right? In Provo, Utah, seem to always be some heavy hitting close games, and so seeing it at 2.5, I think that's because there's still the questions with the run. It's a running quarterback like Jalen Daniels
Hmm.
was. So I think there's lots of things that there's recipes, real recipes for success for Cincinnati is why that line is right there.
Yeah.
Um, but I am leaning BYU to cover that and not just by a field goal. I see it being something 7 to 14. But we could be coming back on Saturday for a post game and scratching our heads. But I'm feeling more confident about this one for the Cougars.
Yeah. No, Cincinnati definitely has a chance to win this game. They have a chance to come into Provo, do the things they need to do. Kansas kind of laid out the strategy for beating
Game
BYU.
plan, yeah.
Yeah, so if Cincinnati's able to follow that, I mean, Emory Jones is a pretty dynamic player. I don't think he's quite Jalen Daniels, so uh, that'll be a big difference if BYU can stop him. And then I think BYU has a better chance of getting the running game going in this one versus when they did. I mean, Arkansas's rush defense was pretty good. Kansas, they showed they were pretty good defending the run. And yeah, I just feel pretty confident about BYU getting the run game going in this one. So I have BYU covering, but I have them only winning by 3. So I have it almost right on the money there. I have BYU pulling out a late win at home, exciting win, first Big 12 win. As far as the over under, I kind of have a 27-24 kind of win for BYU, so that would put it at 51, so just barely over as well. Um, I wanted to say under going to this, but I swear I think we picked it wrong every time, so I'm just going the opposite of what I feel. Because
Yeah,
that Arkansas game, we're like, oh yeah, it's for sure under, and then it was just shootout, and then
oh yeah.
Kansas, we're like, oh yeah, it's going to be under, it's going to be tight, and then that was a shootout as well. So,
So
what do you feel
uh,
about the scoring?
this one scares me. This over under has dropped from 54 down to 49. So there is so much movement on that. Just feels like a trap for me to say. This is, there's trap games on the schedule. This is a trap over under.
I
Just
mean, you
trying
could
to
pick the
cash.
under, and then we can say one of us is right.
Yeah, that's true. The 49. See, it's interesting. You were talking about seeing them getting the run game going. I don't see it. Here's how I see
Okay.
this game going out. I'll walk you through it. The run game still non-existent. We see more than 9. But
See, what
under
I'm
the
thinking
60.
is, I think LJ gets 80 to 90 yards on the
Oh
ground.
wow.
So not
Yeah,
a lot, but a lot more than last week.
I'd love to see what LJ's at on his over under. But
Yeah.
here's how I see it going. The run game still non-existent. Not 9, but we're seeing under 60. 54. I'm going to throw that out there. There's my little
Okay.
weird prediction right on the money. 54 yards of rushing. This is going to be Slovis in the air, similar to what he did. Lots of passes because that's what's going to work. and I'm going over. I gotta go with you on the over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the over. Oh, yeah, I'll go with the over. I'll just put it there. But I don't think the run game gets going. I think it's all Slovis, but I think it's Slovis getting it done with only one interception. There will be an
Yeah.
interception for Slovis, but it'll only be one. But then BY's defense will hold them in the red zone, and they will not kick a field goal. They'll miss it. So there's those bold predictions that if they hit, we can come back next week and I can say, look, crystal ball's working. If not, we can come back and say that was nobody's perfect, right?
Yeah.
I'm only
Yeah,
human.
we got different ideas, huh? No, if they need to rely on Slovis, I'm totally fine with that. But I really hope that the run game gets going at least a little bit. I don't know if they'll be 100 yards, but if LJ Martin can break off a run or two for 20 plus yards, kind of like he did in the Arkansas game, he had that 45 plus yard touchdown run. If he can have something like that, at least to like give Cincinnati a reason to believe that BYU can run the ball, because
The
if
problem
you
is they're going to just
if you're not worried about them running it, then you don't allow the receivers to get open, right?
you bring pressure knowing that it doesn't
Yeah,
matter if
you
you
can blitz
open
a
up gaps
corner.
because you can get home and he's going to be throwing. So there's so much that if BYU can, and I hope you're right, if they can get the run game going, catch Cincinnati off guard, at least in the first half, because then they'll be able to adjust, but go out there and surprise them, get the run game going out of nowhere. Because I think Cincinnati will be looking at all the other games, looking at what Kansas did and saying, hopefully this is exactly what BYU will do, because if it is, they've got a game plan exactly what they need to do. So
Because what they're saying is, all right, well, we don't need to worry about the run game. Let's just make sure that Slovis doesn't do much. Let's get pressure on him and call it a day. That's how we win. And I think BYU is kind of saying, okay, let's establish the run first. That's how we win. So it's kind of like these two game plans that are kind of going against each other. If BYU can run the ball, then it will allow. I mean, Cincinnati will have to change their game plans in some way, and then it will open up play action. It does so much for BYU's offense if the run game can get going. It's like they're playing with half an offense right now, and the good thing is they're still in games despite that. So
I gave the analogy of it's like watching a basketball team with the one main star, and BYU fans know Jimmer, right? There was a good team around Jimmer, but Jimmer was the next level magic. There was a good team to support Brandon Davies but eventually you can't rely solely on that like crazy he's doing it all himself. And unfortunately that's what it kind of is with Slovis. When you see 51 passing, you can do it. It can win you a game. It can keep you in it. But only for so long. There's no championship team that's like, and I'd have to look at it for football, but the majority of them are like, you're getting it done in the team. We've seen Alabama do it in the past, winning. It's like their offense may not be very explosive, but it gets enough done, and their defense was keeping them in the games. They weren't scoring 45 points. It was like 20, 24. So
yeah, the only time I've really seen like a team's offense, I mean, their defense was good too, but 2019 LSU with Joe Burrow, Justin Jefferson. Yeah. I mean, that was a pretty like explosive pass offense, and they really relied on that. Joe Burrow was probably throwing 40, 50 times a game. Could be wrong, but he threw like 50 touchdowns. So, I mean, but that's Joe Burrow with Justin Jefferson and I can't remember who else, but it was just like a crazy stacked team. This isn't quite that, but Slovis can get it done. But yeah, I don't think he can't do it all himself.
Yeah.
So there's got to be something else. And yeah, turnovers I think against Kansas killed us. So if we can protect the ball or at least not allow our turnovers to turn into points.
I got a little tangent for you. Over under on trick plays this game for Roderick. Okay, this is a BYU team that we've seen 2-3 trick plays thrown into games before. We've seen even the same trick play run, right? You see that little like handoff, pitch back, throw. How many trick plays do you see Roderick drawing up in this one in a home night game, trying to get some juice back in the players?
I think there's going to be at least one.
Okay.
Maybe a little, handoff, throw it back to Slovis. He slings it down. We saw the one with Kingston against Arkansas where they threw the backwards pass.
Did we see one against Kansas? I'm trying to think if...
I don't think we did. Was there a... No, I don't think we did.
Maybe the trick play where L.J. Martin and... who was it?
For the screen pass? They were both right there.
They were getting the ball. Maybe that was the tricking themselves. But no, I expect to see 2. I'm thinking 2. Okay. I would like to see 2. Those ones where the whole stadium goes, oh, yeah. That's what I'm hoping for. And BYU getting it done. So that's my...
They should do it. They should do it on the first drive.
We've seen that. Roderick loves to, right out of the gate, just see if it's there.
I feel like they work every time. I swear.
With
like that Kingston one worked great.
With Jaron, it felt like we opened so many games with a deep ball. Same with Zach Wilson. It was like very first play of the game, snap back, deep ball. And
first down.
If you can get that one-on-one coverage, which they look for, with Roberts, he can catch him. Marion, get it done.
I guess to close, I was going to bring this up. Injuries. Do you know anything about Bywater? I heard he was hurt.
I read on Twitter from... Not even from a sketchy source. It was from BYU Sports Nation. It was like Jerem. It was either Jerem or Spencer Linton saying he was undergoing shoulder surgery, but yet everywhere else is like undisclosed. We don't know when he's coming back. So I don't know if he was jumping the gun saying shoulder surgery. I think it was
somebody will have to. I think either way, he's not going to play this week.
It was after that big tackle, the dance.
Yeah.
He said just strained something. He wasn't used to those moves, and
yeah. I don't think he's going to play this week, which could hurt them as well. Undisclosed. Apparently shoulder surgery. So according to somebody,
maybe I dreamed it, but I could have sworn on Twitter I saw shoulder surgery. So
let's find out while we're talking about that, or while I try to find that. Epps. Do you know anything about Epps? We didn't see him last week, right?
That's something
he played
I saw
a little
Twitter.
bit against Arkansas.
Someone said, "Is he dead?"
Yeah.
Like, is he all right? I don't know. That one's tough.
So as of right now, it sounds like we'll get a better assessment of his injury with an MRI today. We'll know more in the next few days. So
okay.
Maybe whoever jumped the gun. See if I see anything about...
I gotta find that.
I don't see anything about shoulder surgery.
No, I'm jumping the gun.
Yeah. Yeah, but Epps, man, he's dead.
Yeah. We need him.
Yeah, because he's dynamic, he's quick. He can make a big difference. Maybe BYU's saving him for this game. I don't know. Maybe he didn't feel good enough to travel to Kansas, and maybe he's fine.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's my joke about Utah right now is that Cam Rising is never coming back.
He's not going to rise. He's never rising.
Season ending. It was like career ending. He can barely walk, and they just keep him around as a strategy to be like, will he play? And so then the teams are just, oh, maybe he will.
Well, like last week, he dressed and did warm-ups.
Yeah.
And so they're just using him as like a...
Even with Florida, he was out there throwing the ball, and it was like, well, is he coming back this game? It was, every game it's been like, oh yeah, he's back. Oh wait, no, he's not back. Never mind. So I don't know. They need him, and he's not coming back for Oregon State, is he? Well, we don't know. We probably don't know.
Yeah, I have them. In my preview, I talked about that, so go watch that. But I was like, if he plays, they cover, but the line's going to change if they know he's playing.
Yeah, because they did some crazy stuff with the line.
I was like, if he doesn't play, it's going to be tough because Oregon State's pretty good.
Yeah.
And then it's just been Utah's defense that's been keeping them afloat.
Yeah.
They've been good. They've been really good. Yeah, everybody, all the tweets. Is Cody Epps alive? Sounds like he warmed up, but it was a game time decision.
Hmm.
He went through full warm up. Okay, so I think he'll be playing this week. So that could be maybe they've got some tricks for him too.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's hope so.
Well, go Cougs. We'll see you Friday night. We'll probably do a post game after the game. Probably be a late one, but it's always that Friday game before General Conference that they like to play. Usually it was against Utah State, but this year against a Big 12 opponent, a new one as well, Cincinnati. So if you made it this far, please comment what you think this game's going to be. If you're a Cincinnati fan, talk trash. If you're a BYU fan, talk trash. The comments are the best part of these videos, so make a comment and subscribe. Anything else, Tanner?
No, that's it. Thank you for tuning in.
Okay, we'll see you guys.